Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty interesting that unfolded on social media recently.
Yeah, we've got some online news pieces guiding us.
Exactly. It involves Singaporean political figures, public commentary online, and, well, a convicted money launderer. We're trying to unpack what happened.
Right. We're looking specifically at a Facebook user, Rich Singh, or Swing Che Huat, and an interaction with three ministers, An Yi Keng, Chee Tat, and Meng.
And the big question, really the core of this deep dive is, where do you draw the line, between asking questions online, maybe legitimate ones, and making claims that could be seen as, well, defamatory?
Especially with public figures, yeah. That's the tricky part.
So tell us, how did this whole thing kick off?
Okay, so early May this year, Rick Sheng made some posts on Facebook. And according to the reports we've seen, these posts basically implied, or at least suggested, that the three ministers knew about, or maybe tolerated, alleged illegal stuff connected to this money launderer, Haijin.
Wow, okay, that's quite a suggestion to make publicly.
It is, and the reaction from the ministers was pretty immediate.
Swift.
Very swift. They put out a joint statement via their press secretary, called the posts categorically false.
Categorically false. Strong words.
And damaging, they said. They were really clear. No personal ties, no professional ties to this Haijin.
So what about these dinners then? They were pictured together, weren't they?
Yes, that's where it gets visually complicated. Photo surfaced,
Right,
showing the ministers at these dinners, and Haijin was there too. Along with others, actually, like former Minister Lim Swee-say was also in some pictures.
and these images just spread.
That viral, yeah. And you can imagine, people saw the photos and started wondering, what's the connection here? Is it just coincidence?
A picture can paint 1,000 words, sometimes the wrong ones.
Exactly. So context becomes really important. The host of these dinners and the person who paid was Sam Goy.
The Popia King.
That's him, well-known businessman. And he apparently confirmed the gatherings were above board, followed all the COVID rules at the time.
So, legitimate events.
Seems so. And the ministers explained their side, too. Ministers Ong and Eng, for example, said they were either work things or just, casual social events.
And they didn't know Haijin personally.
That's what they stated. Didn't know him, had no contact afterwards. Which, in a big dinner, that's plausible, right? You don't always know everyone.
Fair enough. But it leads to the question, who is this Haijin? Why is associating with him such a big deal?
Okay, yeah, crucial context. Haijin was one of the 10 people arrested in that huge billion-dollar money laundering probe in Singapore, a massive case.
Right, I remember that. Huge news.
He was convicted just this April 2024 and then deported in May.
So very recent.
Very. And he's been linked to the Fujian gang, which often implies connections to organized crime. It was a major white-collar crime investigation.
Okay, so any perceived link, even accidental presence in a photo, becomes instantly sensitive.
Extremely sensitive for public officials, absolutely.
Understood. So given how serious this was, and the ministers feeling their names were damaged, what did they actually do about Swan's posts?
They went the legal route, sent legal letters.
Okay. Demanding what?
Demanding a full takedown of the posts they considered defamatory. Not just an edit, a complete removal.
Right.
And public apologies.
Right.
To each of them.
Makes sense, given their stance.
And they also asked Slang to propose damages.
Money.
Yes, but with the specific condition that any damages paid would go to charity.
Ah, interesting. So not for personal gain, but to make a point and benefit charity.
Exactly. And the letters carried a clear warning. Comply or face further legal action. They weren't messing around.
It's a pretty clear signal.
Yeah.
How did Slang respond to that?
He complied fully.
So took the post down.
Took the post down, yes. And issued formal apologies, unreserved apologies, apparently, to all three ministers.
And promised not to do it again.
Yep. Pledged not to repeat or share similar stuff in the future. Seems like the legal pressure worked completely.
So the immediate issue, the post and the apologies, that seems resolved. But it does throw that bigger question into sharp relief, doesn't it?
It really does. We keep coming back to it. Where is that line online? Raising questions versus, potentially wrecking a reputation.
Especially for public figures. It feels like a constant tension.
And it raises other points, too, like, should we expect ministers at big events to somehow know the background of every single guest?
Probably unrealistic.
And does just being in a photo mean you endorse someone, especially if their wrongdoing only comes out later?
That's a tough one. We interpret photos so quickly.
We do. And then there's the flip side. How does the public see it when officials use legal threats against online critics?
Right. Does it look like trying to silence dissent, even if the criticism is maybe unfounded? Or is it just protecting their name?
It's a real balancing act. And, just to be super clear, for this deep dive, we're just reporting on what our sources say happened and the questions raised.
Absolutely. No political sides taken here.
Yeah.
We're just looking at the information presented.
Our goal is just to understand the events and the issues involved.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap. We had Facebook posts suggesting links between ministers and a convicted criminal.
Then a very firm response from the ministers, legal letters demanding retractions, apologies.
And finally, the user removing the posts and apologizing publicly.
Right. Which leaves us and you with something to think about.
Go on.
Well, seeing how fast things can blow up online and that legal action is a real possibility. What's our responsibility as individuals online?
You mean, how do we make sure our commentary is fair? Especially about public figures.
Exactly. How do we stay inquisitive, maybe even critical, but also fair? And what does this whole episode really tell us about, I guess, the relationship between online speech, personal reputation, and the law today?
It's definitely changing, isn't it? Lots to chew on there.